Dappled Glory has a similar, related theme, but many new characters, many new stories, so that it's not just an instant replay. And I do think it contains some of my favorite read-aloud material. So I hope that you enjoyed. First time I did this reading, I had no idea I could read in Irish Brogue. I just suddenly started doing it, and there it was. So it came from somewhere. The character I'm introducing to you, name is Jamie Burns, and this actually segues a little back farther in time. Jamie is also an Irish immigrant, and he comes to Schuylkill County, Pennsylvania. I've been told how that was pronounced about 12 times. Was that close? Anybody know? It looks like Schuylkill, but it's not. And Irish had very difficult time finding work. There were signs everywhere, no Irish need apply. Terrible, terrible prejudice there. And there was a group of vigilantes called the Molly Maguires, this is all very true, who were Irish, and they were renegades, and they took upon themselves to right what they thought were some of the wrongs done to their countrymen in the mines. But it turns out that the Molly Maguires were much more ruthless and brutal than the mine owners had ever been. When Jamie Burns first arrives, he is somewhat enamored of the Molly Maguires because he's a young, hot-headed Irishman. But one night he goes to a rally, and he falls under the influence of a wonderful real-life character named Mother Jones, who was a real union organizer. Have you ever hear of her? Anybody? She's real. She's a very real character in here. She's actually buried in Ohio. She started out in actually Memphis, organizing steel mines, moved to Chicago, did some organizing there, and she's a hot lady. She's got a lot of spitfire. But Jamie suddenly realizes perhaps his place is by her side rather than in the mines. And this chapter, I'm going to try to hop and skip a little bit through it in the interest of time, is March 1893, and this is Jamie's first solo rally. I think you'll find it entertaining. Then the next excerpt I'd like to read, my favorite of all the books I've ever written, is when Jamie meets the woman he's about to marry. Quite a confrontation. Jamie grumbled to himself, and it's a fool thing I got myself into this time," as he trudged through the knee-high snow, his miner's boots filling with slush and turning his toes to ice. The biting wind roared down from the Alleghanies, obliterating the setting sun, rendering the atmosphere to gray misery. Nerves fired his stomach and chest to an unhealthy cauldron of acid. Jamie fought the need to vomit, swallowing hard and raising his face to the elements, in hopes that the icy needles would counteract the eternal fire. Up ahead, the lights of the Knights of Labor Hall struggled to penetrate the gloom. But instead of cheering Jamie, they served to remind him of the daunting task which lay in front of him tonight. Naturally outgoing and passionate, he was not looking forward to this adventure, not at all. He wondered what demons possessed him when he agreed to lead this rally. It wasn't a demon, he knew, it was an angel, the miner's angel. Among her many credits to this point in Jamie's life was participation in the formation of the Knights of Labor, the hall in which he was now about to speak. Critics described her as having the look of an angel and the tongue of a mule skinner. This description fit her well, Jamie believed. In the nearly 4 years since Jamie had been captivated by the tiny inferno Mother Jones, he had worked at her side to recruit support for the union she was organizing, traveled to West Virginia and Ohio as part of her corps of miners, her lieutenant, so to speak. But this was the first time he was to be the center of attention, and he was stared to his frozen toes. "Oh, Mother, I need you tonight. I cannot do this. Lord, help me, I cannot." But she wasn't there tonight. And in his churning stomach, he knew it was all on him, Jamie Burns, to turn this group of disgruntled miners into an organized force instead of a surly mob. Remembering his mentor's famous saying, "I'm not a humanitarian, I'm a hellraiser," helped momentarily, and a half smile teased his lips as he pictured the white-haired militant. Okay, Mother, I can raise hell with the best of them, he thought, and squared his shoulders before opening the oak door of the hall. Pausing just a second to catch his breath, he put on an air of confidence which he didn't feel, and lunged through the door with a shout of, "Hey, brothers, are you ready to rally?" The rumble in the hall turned to startled silence as 135 pairs of eyes fixed on their speaker for the evening. Then little by little, rhythmic clapping spread throughout the room, followed a few seconds later by chants of "Jamie, Jamie." This was a shock to Jamie Burns. He'd been in many a crowd that shouted, "Mother, Mother," but he didn't expect this unanimous recognition of his position in the organization movement, and it took his breath away. Recovering his composure, he quickly dropped his heavy windbreaker and cap, stomped the snow from his boots, and marched through the chanting crowd to the cadence of clapping hands. Shaking a few outstretched hands on the way, Jamie accepted the brotherhood, relishing in it, letting it course through his veins. Holding up his hands for silence, Jamie took command of the stage and the crowd, surprised again, but proud when the gathered miners on his command fell silent, all eyes on him, awaiting his words. The central core of miners in the room were members of this hall. The others had traveled many miles through miserable weather to be here, to hear what miracle had brought some relief to their peers in this mining town of Gerardville. And it was all in Jamie's hands. His strong, rich baritone voice called out, "Brothers, I'm proud of you coming here to work with me tonight instead of sitting by fire warming your toes. I'm proud of you as me brothers, me buddies. If Mother was here today, she'd be proud of you too. Well, we know she is here, don't we? Anytime there's work to be done. Mother's here with all of us tonight." Cheers, more applause. It felt good, Jamie was shocked to note. It felt really good on this stage. Today, brothers, we need to make some hard decisions. We need to find ways for a better life for us, for our wives and children. We need to look around us and form a chain, strong, unbreakable, like us miners. Cheers. I'm going to read a letter from Mother, then I'll take your questions for a while, but I'm not leaving here until every one of you is signed up for the union and satisfied that we could be making a better lives for ourselves and our families. Jamie raised his hand for silence and began to read. Space. Suddenly exhausted, Jamie could hardly wait to leave this hall, lie down on his narrow hotel bed, and sleep the sleep of the dead. Energized nearly to a frenzy by the camaraderie and excitement of the miners, he discovered he'd spoken for over an hour to his shock, and loved every minute of it. Now, though, that fevered energy had deserted him, his knees felt like rubber and his mouth was cottony. Mustering his deepest reserve, he waved to the crowd, who were beginning to make their way to the side of the hall, where tables were set up with union agreements, rally flyers, and eager volunteers taking registrations. The steps down from the stage seemed unbearably steep, but he managed not to stumble or betray his shakiness. Hands pounded his back, his shoulders, nearly knocking him over. "Way to go, Jamie! She taught you good." Pride crept through the trembles. He knew they were right. He had done a good job, and Mother Jones would indeed be proud, even though he was afraid he would have to crawl out of the room into which he had stomped earlier. Jamie wondered fleetingly whether Mother ever felt this weak and helpless after her talks, but abandoned the thought as impossible. If only he knew how many times Mother had felt exactly that way. In a state similar to drunkenness, but not nearly as much fun, Jamie Burns made it to the registration table and fell into a chair behind one of them, gratefully accepting a mug of hot cider from a volunteer, which he downed in one gulp, oblivious to the heat, until his gullet registered "fire," and he coughed heartily. Laughter reached his ears as he snorted from the scalding cider. "Take it easy, man, it ain't water." "Water, that's what I need," Jamie managed to sputter, and a cup of water miraculously appeared in his hand. He sipped the water slowly, feeling the heat subside, and his energy beginning to return. "Thank you, man, that's better," he said, taking a refreshing breath and turning his dazed attention to the pile of signed agreements another volunteer had put in front of him. Okay, I'm going to segue now. Quick drink of water too, as Jamie Burns taught, to a chapter called Mandate